Welcome to the course on social psychology. Today we will be studying one of the aspect of prosocial behavior, or what are the particular steps involved in a prosocial behavior. So, the main objectives of this lesson are a little bit introduction on what exactly is prosocial behavior, then various steps involved in prosocial behavior such as attending to situation, interpreting situation, assuming responsibility, assessing the ability to take action, and the final step is deciding whether to act. So, before proceeding to the lesson, we will see what exactly we are going to discuss. So, when we say steps to prosocial behavior, the decision of helping or not helping goes through a series of decision making, and the likelihood of a person engaging in a prosocial act, which is again determined by a series of decisions that must be asked quickly to those who witness an emergency. Each step of decision process has numerous factors operating to make the particular helping behavior more or less likely to occur. In the initial stages, when an emergency arises and someone is in need of help, a bystander may or may not respond in a prosocial way, and the responses may range from heroism to apathy. When faced with an emergency, a bystander's tendency to help or not help depends on the part of a decision he makes. So, before going for the steps to prosocial behavior, we will have a small introduction of what exactly the prosocial behavior is and what are the factors which affects it. Prosocial behavior is an again helpful action that benefits other person without any necessary to provide any direct benefit to the person performing the act, which may even involve risk for the person who helps. Prosocial behavior as a broad range of actions intended to benefit one or more people other than oneself. For example, behaviors such as helping, comforting, sharing come under helping behavior. Psychologists suggest that there are a number of reasons why people engage in prosocial behavior, and many of these behaviors have been influenced during childhood and adolescence, where elders encourage children to share, help and be kind to others. Behaviors like helping, sharing, donating, cooperating and volunteering are also considered to be prosocial behavior. The actions are motivated by empathy, as we know, and by concern about the welfare and rights of others. Evidence also suggests that prosociability is the center to social groups in terms of well-being across a range of scales. It fosters positive traits that are beneficial for everyone. Encouraging prosocial behavior may also require decreasing or eliminating undesirable social behaviors. Adolescents do show more prosocial behavior than children, but in general it does not appear to be as gradual increase in prosocial behavior, especially during adolescence and young adulthood. The differences in parenting is also associated with adolescent volunteering to help, and in addition to it, the adolescents who participate in community service activities tend to have parents who are usually prosocial way or who are also a volunteer of that. Bystander effect is also one of the way of how the situation can impact the helping behaviors. According to 𝗧𝗦𝗔𝗧 and 𝗧𝗏, the likelihood of a person involving in a prosocial act is determined by a series of decisions that must be made by those who are witnessing an emergency. For example, in Catherine Genevieve's case, the witnesses to the stabbing attack should either have called the police immediately or perhaps even intervened directly by shouting at the attacker or working as a group to halt the attack. Hence, when we are suddenly and unexpectedly facing an actual emergency, the situation at that point is not that simple. We have to quickly, as soon as possible, try to disseminate what is happening or going on and what, if anything, we can do about it. Hence, the process of helping and not helping depends upon various steps. So, there is a lot of dilemma which goes whether you help or you should not help, and a lot of decisions, as I said, series of decisions goes on. So, again the decision to help is not so simple. There are series of questions which have to be acknowledged before any help is provided. Just being with others may let the person help or will inhibit the helping process. The particular nature of help is needed also plays an important role to determine what usually happens after it. it is seen that potential helpers usually engage in cost-benefit analysis in terms of time, money, resources and risk involved in helping. So now let's go deep into what exactly are these steps of prosocial behavior. There are 5 crucial steps to determine helping and not helping. In each step, there are numerous factors which are operated to make helping behavior more or less likely to occur. Before discussing the steps to prosocial behavior, you also should have to understand that in the social situation in which we are is a very strong determinant of whether or not we help. If you compare personality and social facts, it is seen that personality may not generally be as strong as that of the social context and the personality variables. It is also seen that some people are more helpful than others across many situations, and adding to it, we can also say that they might have the altruistic or prosocial personality. People with altruistic personalities are more empathetic and sympathetic for others and feel that it is appropriate and follow the norm of social responsibility. Children who were helpful in their preschool were also helpful later in childhood and in early adulthood also, which suggests that those who are prosocial in their childhood continued to be there in their adulthood also. It was also seen that people with altruistic personalities seem to be people who have strong concern for relatedness and helping others. The following are the steps towards the prosocial behavior. First is attending to the situation or noticing that something is happening. Second is interpreting that particular situation. Third is assuming responsibility. Fourth is assessing the ability to take action. And the final step is deciding whether to act. So it is like a ladder type as you can see in the picture. Let's go deep into each step. Step 1, attending to situation or noticing that something is happening. Emergency often occurs unexpectedly and there is not much way to anticipate that it will occur or to plan how best to respond. For example, if you are asleep, deep in your thought or concentrating on something else, we hardly notice anything unusual happening. These things happen in our everyday life where we ignore many sights and sounds because they are ordinarily not relevant to our concerns. The most important point is that when people are preoccupied by personal concerns, they pay less attention to what is going on around them. For example, if you are very much stressed about your examination, you hardly notice anything which is happening around. There was a field study which was conducted by 𝗧𝗦𝗔𝗧 and 𝗏𝗏𝗏 in the year 1973 to test the importance of this particular step in the decision making process. In their research, students were in training for a clergy, and these individuals are those who should likely to help a stranger in need. The experimenters there instructed each participant to walk to a nearby building on the campus to give a talk. The experimenters created 3 different conditions so that the degree of preoccupation varies. Some were told that they had plenty of time to reach other building. Some were told that they were right on schedule with just enough time to get there, and third group was told that they were late for the particular assignment and needed to hurry. So what happened? During their walk across the campus, individuals in their first group would be least preoccupied by the need to hurry, and the people in the third group would be the most preoccupied. Along the route to the building where that talk was given, an emergency was staged, where a stranger was slumped in a doorway, coughing and groaning. It was seen that 63% of participants who had time to spare provided help that was on schedule, 45% helped. In the most preoccupied group, only 10% responded to the stranger. Many of the preoccupied students paid little or no attention to the person who was coughing and groaning. They simply stepped over him and continued on their way. Hence, it was seen clearly from this experiment that a person who is very busy to pay attention to his or her surroundings is very likely not to notice even an obvious emergency. Under these conditions, little help is given because the potential helper is not even aware that an emergency exists. Second is interpreting that particular situation. Whenever we pay attention to an event, we only have limited information of what is happening and many a times when we catch our attention, it does not turn out to be an emergency and need not be a matter of concern. Whenever potential helpers are not completely sure about what is going on, they usually hold back and wait for further information. According to Wilson, an ambiguous information as to whether one is witnessing a serious problem or something inconsequential, most people are inclined to accept a comforting and undemanding and usually accurate interpretation that indicates no need to take action. For example, if you are writing exam in a hall consisting of many people and suddenly you hear some loud noises, firstly you will interpret that something is happening outside and you go and witness it. But again, second thought will go in your mind, what if it is not an emergency and the loud noises are due to the people talking loudly, and what if you get embarrassed for misinterpreting the particular situation? And then you will also think that if any emergency is going on, then the invigilator or anyone in the examination hall who are present will definitely inform. This particular thing suggests that presence of multiple witnesses may inhibit helping, not only because of diffusion of responsibility, but also because it is embarrassing to misinterpret a situation and to act inappropriately. And making such serious mistake in front of several strangers might lead them to conclude that you are overreacting. When others are present as fellow observers with us, we rely on social comparison to test our interpretations. If other people show no sign of alarm about whatever we are witnessing, it is usually easier and comfortable to follow their lead. The tendency for an individual surrounded by a group of strangers to hesitate and do nothing is based on pluralistic ignorance, which is the tendency of bystanders in an emergency to rely on what their bystanders do and say, even though none of them are very sure about what is happening or what to do about it. All the bystanders hold back and behave as if there is no problem. Each individual uses this information to justify the failure of the particular act. According to Darley and Batson, people who are concerned about being late for an appointment are less likely to pay attention to what is going around them, and as a consequence, less likely to help a stranger in need. When research participants were told that they were ahead of schedule in getting to an appointment, most of them stopped and helped a stranger who was slumped over and coughing and groaning in that particular doorway. And some of them who were told that they were on schedule, less than half stopped and provided assistance. This indicates that the greater the time pressure, the smaller the percentage of individuals who stopped to help. Latney and Darley, again in the year 1968, provided a very dramatic demonstration of how people will go to avoid making an inappropriate response to what may or may not be an emergency. The investigators placed students in a room alone or with two other students and asked them to fill out questionnaires. After several minutes had passed, the experimenters secretly and quietly pumped some smoke into the research room through the help of a vent. When a participant was working there alone, 75% of them stopped what they were doing, and when the smoke appeared and left the room to report the problem. When 3 people were there in the room, only 38% reacted to the smoke. Even after it became so thick that it was difficult to see, 62% continued to work on the questionnaire and failed to make any response to the smoke filled room. Hence, with this example, it shows that the presence of others, people clearly inhibit their responsiveness. According to Routkowski, the inhibiting effect is much less in groups which consist of friends rather than strangers, because friends are likely to communicate with one another about what is going on. For example, if you are in your class and you suddenly observe that your friend is not feeling well, you usually approach your friend and ask as per what happened, and also provide anything he or she needs. But just imagine a situation where same thing happened to your stranger. Before approaching them, you think twice, or there is some inhibition to offer help, unlike when you offer help to your friend. Now we will come to step 3, which we call it as assuming responsibility. The next step to prosocial behavior is taking responsibility, and that also depends on various factors. For suppose, if the responsibility is not clear and people assume that anyone in a leadership role must take responsibility, such as adults with children, professors with students, and so on. For example, in many emergency situations, certain individuals are the appropriate ones to take charge, such as a military officer in response to an armed attack, a police officer in response to an accident or a crime scene, or someone with medical training in response to an injury or illness, as instructor in response to a classroom emergency, and so on. If there is only one person, then that one person will feel a lot of responsibility to help a person. But same situation, if there are more people, then there can be chance of diffusion of responsibility, which happens. It is again where the bystander effect comes to picture, which plays an important role in this particular step, where people provide less assistance in emergency as the number of other bystander increases. Study conducted by Kramer et al. Says that half of the participants were registered nurses and others were general education students. With the use of confederate bystanders who were instructed not to react, participants passed a worker on a ladder and then they heard a noise as if the worker had fallen. The nurses helped when in the presence of others or when alone, whereas general education students were more likely to help if they were alone. Apart from this particular thing, other variables which also plays an important role in this particular experiment. Larger groups can actually increase helping behavior relate to that of smaller groups. When people are seated face to face and can easily observe other people's expressions and reactions to a potential emergency, helping is higher in the presence of than when people are seated back to back and thus cannot see each other, non-verbal expressions of their concern. Now, let us go to step 4, which is assessing the ability to take action. In this particular fourth step, it is deciding that do we have the necessary knowledge and skill to do the action. Even if a bystander progresses as far as third step and assumes responsibility, a prosocial response cannot occur unless the person knows how to be helpful. Some emergencies are sufficiently simple that almost everyone has the necessary skills. If someone skips on a particular staircase, almost any bystander is able to help. That person gets up, and if it is something related to car repair or computer repair, then we need to have knowledge about it to help. But in this situation, the best we can do is to offer to call for assistance. For example, if someone is just rescued from drowning and if they require cardiopulmonary resuscitation, and if the person is not able to provide it, then they will be less likely to help. But only thing what we can do in this situation is call for the assistance. Whenever emergencies require special skills, usually only a portion of the bystanders are able to help. For example, only good swimmers can assist a person who is drowning, and in case of medical emergency, only a nurse or a doctor can be helpful. Now, let us go to step 5, that is making the final decision to provide help or providing help. Once a bystander progresses through the first 4 steps in the particular decision making process, help still does not occur unless he or she makes the ultimate decision to engage in a helpful act. Sometimes help at this particular stage can be inhibited by fears about the potential negative consequences. People sometimes also try to weigh the positive versus the negative aspects of helping, and usually the fear of negative consequences. For instance, if you see there is a robbery on the road, you may think to yourself that you will be able to do justice by helping the victim. If you help, but also there is a risk of being stabbed by yourself, and so ultimately many people will choose to stay safe and comfortable and not provide help. There was a study, this was particularly given by 𝗧𝗦𝗔𝗧 and Frankenstein. The rewards of being helpful are provided primarily by the motives and beliefs of the helper, but there are great many kinds of potential costs. So, these are the 5 steps which are involved in decision making process of the prosocial behavior. Hence, prosocial behavior is a part of our everyday lives, and to have a world which is helpful, we should have the relevant information to guide in our lives. For example, if we are in a crowd and see someone in need of assistance, and suppose we have the knowledge of bystander effect, we may more likely to take the responsibility of helping, knowing that others most likely are also in the same frame of mind, and therefore, the more knowledge we have about the prosocial behavior, the more likely we help people. Hence, engaging in a prosocial behavior much more complex than there are many things which are also interrelated to each other, and any prosocial acts go through the above 5 crucial steps which we have discussed. So, now let us see what we have learnt in this particular lesson. We learnt what is the prosocial behavior in a very brief format, and then we have also seen what are the different things which affect prosocial behavior. Then slowly we also learnt what are the different steps which are involved in prosocial behavior, like attending to the situation, interpreting the situation, assuming the responsibility, accessing the ability to take action, and deciding whether to act. And we have also seen how each step is very important and independent and interrelated to each step. So, each step is very important and it takes you more farther to the helping process.